They say the worst stories begin with the best intentions. Mine? It began with a toast. It was a warm September evening, and the kind of wedding where everything sparkled, strings of golden lights wrapped around oak beams, champagne flutes with names etched on them, a string quartet playing Coldplay like it was Mozart. The kind of wedding where everyone posts photos with hashtags like hashtag forever starts today and hashtag couple goals. Except it wasn't my wedding. It was my best friend Mason's. And I was the best man. My wife, Julia, sat 3 tables back, in the soft glow of candlelight, laughing with her hand on someone else's arm. I didn't notice him then, not really. I was too busy rehearsing my toast in my head, trying to keep it light, funny, charming. The usual. My job was to be the emotional airbag, not the wreck. I stood, raised my glass, and launched into the speech I'd practiced in front of the mirror like it was a TED Talk. To Mason and Elise, I said, my smile easy. May your love be like this wine, deep, intoxicating, and preferably never spilled on the white carpet. Laughter. That part always landed. As I spoke, I looked around the room, met eyes, earned smiles, did the rounds like a good performer. But when my gaze landed on Julia, something snagged. She wasn't looking at me. She was smiling, beaming, actually, but not at me. The guy next to her leaned in and whispered something that made her tilt her head and laugh in that way she used to laugh with me. Not at my jokes, but at my presence, at who I was. The moment was quick, over in seconds, but it stayed with me. Like a splinter in the skin of a perfect day. I finished the toast. Polite applause. Mason gave me a bear hug and said I killed it. I even got a few flirtatious glances from bridesmaids I wasn't interested in. But none of it mattered. Because when I sat down, Julia didn't say a word about the toast. Not, you nailed it. Not, that was beautiful. Not even, hey, pass the butter. Instead, she looked at her phone, tapped the screen, locked it, slipped it into her purse. You okay? I asked. Yeah, just tired, she said, smiling a smile that didn't touch her eyes. I nodded, pretending I didn't feel something drift a little farther away. But that was just the beginning. I didn't know then what I know now, that sometimes a laugh across the table is more dangerous than a slap across the face. Because betrayal doesn't knock. It whispers. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but sometimes it's more like 20/knife in the back. Looking back, the signs were all there flashing neon, really, but I was too busy squinting through the fog of routine to see them. Julia and I had been married for 6 years. Not Instagram perfect, married, but real married. We fought over laundry, we negotiated who got the last slice of pizza, we had inside jokes about our neighbor's yappy dog. Normal stuff. But lately, something had shifted. We weren't fighting, at least not out loud. But the silence was heavier than any shouting match. She started staying late at work more often. First it was twice a week. Then it was 3. Then it was, I've got a team dinner, don't wait up. Now, I'm not the jealous type. I'm not the guy checking mileage on the car or sniffing collars like I'm auditioning for CSI. But when your wife starts taking phone calls in the pantry with the door closed, it kind of plants a seed. And that seed grows. One night, she came home smelling like hotel soap. Not perfume. Not her usual lavender lotion. Hotel soap. That sterile, over-bleached smell you can't mistake for anything else. You changed shampoo? I asked casually. She blinked. Oh, yeah. Borrowed some from Melanie at the gym. Mine ran out. She said it fast. Too fast. Like she'd practiced. Smells expensive, I said. She smiled, tossed her bag on the couch, and changed the subject to our water bill. Smooth deflection. If I hadn't been paying attention, I would have missed it. But I was paying attention now. Then came the photos. Not hers or his. Some guy started popping up on her socials. A few likes here. A comment there. Then a photo of their team at some off-site retreat, standing way too close for professional boundaries. I clicked on his profile. His name was Ethan. Of course it was Ethan. They always have names like Ethan or Blake. He had perfect teeth, a sleeve tattoo, and a bio that said something like, marketing mindset coffee addict be the change. Translation, professional flirt with a Canva subscription. Still, I said nothing. Because maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe work retreats really do involve beach bonfires and cocktails and inside jokes with shirtless coworkers. But something in me, some quiet part that usually doesn't speak, whispered, this isn't nothing. So I started testing the waters. Who's the guy with the tattoo in your stories? I asked one night as she scrolled Instagram in bed. She didn't even look up. Ethan? He's hilarious. Total goof. He's like the office golden retriever. I nodded, filing that away. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I just smiled. Because here's the thing. When you suspect your house is on fire, you don't scream. You don't panic. You start looking for the exits. You ever notice how the truth doesn't always crash in like a thunderstorm? Sometimes it shows up like a slow leak in the ceiling, quiet, persistent, and just inconvenient enough to ignore, until the whole thing caves in. My roof caved in on a Thursday. It was raining outside, which felt too poetic to be accidental. Julia texted around 5 p.m., said she was heading to a last-minute team dinner. No details. No time. No emoji. Just a sentence. Cool. Totally normal for a married woman to be allergic to punctuation when she's out with coworkers, right? I stared at that message like it owed me money. And then I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I opened the shared laptop. Now, listen. I'm not proud of it. I'm not some digital detective, some guy who combs through browser history looking for clues like a lovesick Sherlock. But desperate men don't care about dignity, they care about answers. I started with email. Nothing. At least, nothing on the main account. Then I saw it. A second email address had been added to Chrome. Just her initials. No profile photo. Clean. Tidy. Suspiciously blank. I clicked it open. The inbox wasn't empty. It was curated. There they were. Messages from Ethan. Dozens of them. Labeled. Starred. Archived. A personal highlight reel of bad decisions. One subject line read. Last night was everything. Another. Wish I could wake up next to you every morning. I scrolled. I don't know why. Some part of me hoped I'd find a message that said, hey, just kidding. We were rehearsing for a rom-com. But nope. Every line hit like a brick. My hands weren't shaking. My breath wasn't heavy. I didn't cry. It was almost like I left the building and just watched someone else break. Then came the calendar invite. The Haven Hotel. Thursday, 7 p.m. The night she said she had dinner with the team. The hotel was 10 minutes from our house. I sat there for a full minute before I stood up. Got in the car. Drove through the rain like I had a purpose, which I did. The Haven was a mid-tier place. Not shady, but not memorable either. Just enough class to feel justified. I pulled into the lot, parked, and waited. No grand plan. No confrontation rehearsed. I just needed to see. At 7:12 p.m., she walked in. Umbrella in one hand, phone in the other. He met her in the lobby. Hugged her like she belonged to him. And she smiled, really smiled, like she hadn't smiled at me in months. They didn't see me. I didn't let them. I just watched until they disappeared into the elevator, side by side, their reflection disappearing as the doors slid shut. I didn't move. I just sat in my car, the wipers thumping back and forth like a heartbeat I didn't feel anymore. So there it was. No denials. No maybes. No, he's just a friend. Just silence, and a truth that couldn't be buried anymore. The good news? I wasn't angry. I was clear. And that was much, much worse. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was overwhelmed with grief or huddled on the floor sobbing into a bottle of whiskey. I didn't play the Sad Husband soundtrack. There was no Coldplay echoing through the dark. Just silence. And planning. You see, when you learn that your wife of 6 years has been sneaking off to hotels with her office golden retriever, you don't react. You respond. And my response was simple. Take inventory. The next morning, Julia came home around 8:10 a.m. dressed differently than the night before, of course. She wore that smile that said, if I act normal, maybe this won't feel like a lie. She walked into the kitchen like it was just another Friday. Morning, she chirped, popping the fridge open like she hadn't just rewritten our vows in a hotel room. Morning, I said, not looking up from my coffee. She poured orange juice, sipped it like nothing was wrong. You sleep okay? Eventually. She nodded. Sorry again about dinner last night. Things ran late. I could have called her out right there. Could have dropped the hotel name, the timestamp, the elevator security footage I'd pulled from a friend who owed me one. But nah, that wasn't the play. This wasn't the kind of betrayal you shout about. This was the kind you study. After she left for work, probably not to work, I started step one, the house. Our house was tidy. Minimalist. Nothing out of place, except now, everything was. I walked into our bedroom and opened her nightstand drawer. A burner phone. Classic. You always wonder what kind of people use burner phones outside of mob movies and political scandals. Turns out, people like Julia. People who wanted backup lies for their main lies. I didn't open it. Not yet. I wanted to savor the moment. First, I gathered the real trophies. The burner phone, a copy of our marriage license, her wedding ring, which she never wore during her team dinners, a photo of us from last Christmas that suddenly looked staged. I placed them in a shoebox, labeled it Truth Kit. Then I opened her laptop and took a screenshot of every email from Ethan, forwarded them to an account she didn't know existed. I wasn't going to confront her with these. I was building a portfolio. See, this wasn't about rage anymore. This was about legacy. She wanted to write me out of her story as the boring, predictable husband she outgrew. I was going to write a better ending. By noon, I'd called our bank, had passwords changed. Not stolen, just reorganized. Everything I'd contributed to, the mortgage, savings, that vacation fund she swore was for Bali. One day, I rerouted it into a holding account. Joint accounts became solo accounts. Legally, strategically. Call me cold, but I was just matching the temperature she set. Then I went to my lawyer. Now, Joe's a straight shooter. Mid-50s, wears ties that look like they came with his law degree, and has the patience of a tree stump. He listened, said very little, nodded, took notes. When I finished laying out the truth like a detective solving his own murder, he said, "Do you want revenge or resolution? Is there a difference?" I asked. He smiled. "One leaves you bitter. The other leaves you free." I thought about that. Then let's be free. But smart. Joe nodded again. You'll want to stay calm. Document everything. The law doesn't care about bruised egos. It cares about evidence. Oh, I had evidence. By the time Julia came home that night, I was done playing husband. She walked in wearing guilt like perfume. Subtle. Obvious if you got close enough. She was on her phone, probably texting Ethan something like, "Dinner was awkward. He's acting weird." She didn't know that I had the phone now. Her burner was in my desk drawer, charging, data cloned to the cloud. "Hey," she said, like everything was normal. "I'm starving. You want to order something?" I nodded. "Sure. Whatever you want." "Oh, thank God," she laughed, dropping her purse on the counter. "I'm craving Thai." I looked at her and smiled gently. "You know what, Jules? Get whatever you're in the mood for. Tonight's your night." She blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." I took a sip of my drink. "You've been working hard. I just want you to enjoy yourself." She watched me for a beat too long. Something in her eyes shifted. Her smile faltered. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm great," I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it. The thing about betrayal is, it sharpens your instincts. Suddenly, every glance, every word, every offhand comment becomes a clue. Julia didn't realize it, but the minute she walked back into our house that night, she was walking onto a stage, and I was the only one who'd read the full script. She thought I was clueless. Still in the dark. Still clinging to hope. She had no idea I was rehearsing her exit. The next few days were calm. On the surface, she'd keep up the charade, asking about my day, tossing kisses on her way out, humming while she got dressed like she wasn't planning hotel escapes during lunch breaks. Meanwhile, I was setting the stage. Step 1. I invited her parents over for dinner. Now, you might think that's a strange move, inviting your in-laws when your marriage is dissolving like sugar in boiling water. But trust me, it was chess, not checkers. Her mother, Evelyn, was sweet, traditional, and believed in Sunday dinners and never airing dirty laundry. Her father, on the other hand, Harold was a former Marine turned accountant. The man could smell dishonesty like it was diesel fuel. I wanted witnesses. I wanted them to see her act. "Dinner smells amazing," Evelyn said as she walked in, hugging me like I hadn't been ghosted emotionally by her daughter for the past year. Julia was already sipping wine, overly cheerful. "Told you he's the better cook," she said, kissing me on the cheek with a smile so fake it deserved its own IMDb credit. We sat. We ate. We small-talked. Retirement plans. Stock tips. Julia's new project at work. "Oh yeah, that project." "So," I said, setting down my fork. "How's the golden retriever?" Julia froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Harold raised an eyebrow. Evelyn smiled politely. "Sorry, who?" "Ethan," I said. "The guy Julia's been working late with. The one she's been mentoring. Or is it the other way around?" Julia gave a tight laugh. "Logan, what are you?" "Don't," I said quietly. "Not here. Not with them." The table went silent. Evelyn's fork clinked against her plate. Harold didn't blink. "You sure you want to do this?" Julia whispered, low enough for only me to hear. "I didn't start this," I replied. "I'm just writing it down." Her face flushed. Can we talk privately? We'll get there. I stood and walked to the side table, pulled open a drawer, pulled out the box. What's that? Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. This, I said, placing the box on the table, is the truth. I opened it slowly, pulled out the burner phone, the printed emails, the hotel receipts, the screenshots of Ethan's not-so-professional texts. Julia stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. You've been spying on me? Spying? I laughed, genuinely laughed. Julia, if I was spying, you'd be in handcuffs. This was observation. Confirmation. Harold leaned forward, eyes on the papers. You did this in our house? Dad, don't. You did this in our house? He repeated, louder. While this man cooked you meals and mowed the lawn and paid the damn mortgage? Julia's mouth opened, but no words came out. I told you we should have stayed out of their business, Evelyn whispered, dabbing her mouth with a napkin, clearly wishing the floor would open up and swallow her. Evelyn, Harold snapped. Don't sugarcoat this. This isn't a misunderstanding. I looked at Julia. She looked small. The first time in months she didn't have a retort ready. The mask cracked. I walked over and gently closed the lid on the box. I'm not asking you to explain, I said. Not to me. Not anymore. I'm not mad. I'm not yelling. I just needed you to see what it looks like from this side of the table. She sat back down slowly, as if the gravity had gotten heavier. You had a choice, I continued. You could have told me you weren't happy. We could have talked. We could have separated clean. But instead, you wanted both lives. One hand in the fire, the other on the thermostat. Julia wiped her eyes. It wasn't supposed to be serious. It just happened. That's how most collisions start, I said. But the damage still counts. Evelyn reached across the table for her hand. Julia pulled away. I gathered the box and tucked it under my arm. You'll get papers next week, I said. This dinner was just the dress rehearsal. I turned to Harold and Evelyn. You're welcome here anytime. But your daughter? She doesn't live here anymore. Then I walked out. Not in a rage. Not slamming doors. Just calm. Certain. Rehearsed. A funny thing happens when you stop begging someone to stay, they panic. The day after the dinner, Julia didn't come home. She didn't text. Didn't call. Just went radio silent, like she was hoping if she kept her head down long enough, I'd forget I caught her red-handed with her morals down. She must have assumed I'd cool off, maybe even apologize. She always thought I'd fold. I used to. Once. Not anymore. The papers went out Monday morning. Divorce petition. No contest. Irreconcilable differences, which is the legal way of saying she turned our marriage into a discount soap opera, and I'm not renewing for another season. I sent a copy to her office via courier, signature required. A little formality, a little salt. By Tuesday, my phone lit up. Not from her. From him. Ethan. He texted like we were old college buddies settling a misunderstanding over a fantasy football league. Hey man, just wanted to say I didn't mean for things to happen like this. Julie is going through a lot. I hope we can talk man to man. I stared at that message for a long time. Man to man. The guy's sleeping with my wife and wants a heart-to-heart like we're grabbing coffee. He thinks this is a plot twist. He doesn't realize he's been cast as a prop. I didn't reply. Not yet. See, I had a better plan. A cleaner one. One she'd never see coming. Thursday, I invited Julia to lunch. Neutral ground. A local cafe with outdoor seating and visible exits, just in case her ego showed up wearing heels. She arrived 10 minutes late, oversized sunglasses, hair curled, dressed like she thought I'd forgotten everything. Thanks for meeting, she said, sitting across from me like nothing had happened. You picked this spot on purpose, she added, scanning the quiet crowd. Somewhere public so I don't make a scene. You know yourself well, I replied. She sighed dramatically, the way people do when they've rehearsed being misunderstood. Look, I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't plan it. Things between us have been. Save it, I said gently, holding up a hand. I'm not here for the confession. I'm here for the transition. She blinked. What? I'm giving you the house. That surprised her. Wait, what? I pulled a folder from my coat. You'll find all the legal transfers inside. The deed, the title, the furniture list. You can keep it. Her brows furrowed. Why? Because you want it more than I do. And because I've already moved out. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I packed last night, I continued. Took what mattered. Left everything else. You can have the walls. I took the piece. Julia leaned back, stunned. So that's it? No, I smiled. That's just the prelude. She tilted her head. What are you doing, Logan? I leaned in. Let me tell you what happens next. Ethan, golden retriever, office sweetheart, captain of team bad decisions. You see, while Julia was busy sneaking around in hotel elevators, I was busy doing my own homework. A little digging, a little tech magic, and a whole lot of patience. Turns out, Ethan's not just her coworker. He's also on probation at work for 2 previous HR complaints. One involved a boundary issue with a junior intern. Another for inappropriate behavior on a company retreat. Both quietly settled, but not forgotten. So I compiled a neat little dossier. Timeline. Photos. Emails. Screenshots. Even that little moment outside the Haven, where Ethan casually grabbed Julia's waist like they were on vacation in Aruba. You'd be amazed how much you can gather when you stop hoping and start listening. And here's the thing, Julia's company? Big on ethics. Bigger on reputation. The HR director is an old client of mine. Someone who once said, if you ever need anything, I owe you big. Well, time to collect. I'm not getting fired over this, Julia said, her voice rising. You might not, I said calmly. But Ethan? Ethan's got 3 strikes and no credibility. She swallowed. You'd really do that to him? I didn't do anything, I said, finishing my drink. He just finally ran into someone who keeps receipts. She glared at me. You want to humiliate me? No, I said, standing. I want to end this. And sometimes, the only way out is through. As I walked away, she called after me. Where will you go? I paused, turned halfway. I don't know yet. But anywhere's better than living next to a landmine. That night, I slept better than I had in years. I didn't need revenge in the movie sense. No explosions, no public shaming. I didn't need to ruin her. I just needed her to realize. She played the game like it was poker, but I had been playing chess, and I never moved a piece without a plan. You'd think after that cafe showdown, Julia would retreat quietly, reflect, apologize, maybe. But no, she doubled down, like someone caught cheating at cards who just insists you misunderstood the rules. The next week, she tried damage control. She texted, let's be adults about this. She emailed, you're making this harder than it has to be. She even had the audacity to call my sister and say, Logan's acting irrationally. He's emotional. Right. Emotional. Because God forbid the man who was lied to, cheated on, and emotionally exiled from his own marriage has a reaction. But I didn't respond. I didn't take the bait. You see, by now, I had something she didn't. Peace. And a power she'd never understand, the truth, quietly handled. I moved into a furnished loft across town. Nothing fancy. Concrete walls. Exposed brick. Silence. I didn't even bring the TV. Just my books, my records, my thoughts. It was the first space in years that felt truly mine. And the best part? No pretending. No passive-aggressive sighs. No phone face down during dinner. No wondering who the text was from. Just the stillness of starting over. I didn't know who I was rebuilding yet, but I liked the foundation. The divorce moved faster than either of us expected. Turns out, when one person doesn't fight and the other's out of ammo, the paperwork pretty much writes itself. Still, there were complications, because betrayal doesn't just ruin relationships. It distorts everything in its path. I found out Ethan was fired. Quietly. Violation of conduct, they said. Julia stayed. Barely. A demotion. Whispered gossip. That fake confidence of hers cracking under fluorescent lights and office tension. Mutual friends started reaching out. A few with the classic, I had no idea. Others with stories. Turns out, Ethan wasn't the first. Just the latest. A warm-up act. I didn't need details. But it did make one thing clear, Julia's betrayal wasn't spontaneous combustion. It was patterned weather. My therapist, yeah, I got one, called it emotional erosion. You were conditioned to doubt your instincts, she said. You weren't blind. You were slowly uninvited from your own marriage. That one hit hard. Because it was true. But you know what else she said? You survived. And survival is a form of revenge. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real envelope. Handwritten. It was from Julia. She wrote about memories. About regret. About how she missed the old US. She wrote that Ethan was gone, and that she'd made mistakes. That she wasn't asking to get back together, but just wanted closure. Connection. One last honest moment. I read it twice, folded it, and dropped it in the shredder. Because the thing about closure? It's not something you give someone who burned your house down. It's something you build for yourself, brick by painful brick. And I wasn't in the business of lending hammers anymore. It's been a year now. I don't think about Julia every day anymore. Just occasionally. Like when I pass a certain restaurant, or when I hear a song that used to mean something. The ghost of a life that almost was. But here's the kicker. I'm better. Not bitter. Not broken. Just better. I'm writing again. Volunteering. I even rescued a dog from a shelter. Her name's Ivy, and she trusts easier than I do. But we're figuring it out. My heart? Still healing. But it's mine again. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, I pour a glass of something strong, sit on the balcony, and whisper to myself. You didn't lose. You learned. You didn't get destroyed. You evolved. And maybe one day Julia will look at a stranger and wonder if he's me. Maybe she'll laugh at a joke that almost reminds her of the life she threw away. But I won't be there. Because I've moved on. And because my story didn't end with her betrayal. It began with my decision to survive it.